All right, welcome everyone. This is the December general meeting of Investing for Charity, and it's good to see a lot of new faces. I think we've got people from the UNSW Society, like usually from the UNSW Society, and we've got people from Westpac who've come along as well. So there's a couple from Westpac actually, yeah, yeah, people from Accenture, who are all part of like Ken's club. and Investors Mutual, and we've got Westpac, we've got Lonergan Associates, and as well as students from Sydney, UNSW, so and even Wollongong University, as far away as Wollongong University. So welcome. So what we're going to do is we'll kick off with an update for myself, and then we'll go on to our guest speaker, who's Michael O'Neill. And after that, we've got a feedback session from our research analysis team. Now, that's usually feedback on like what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And the way that we're actually delivering these is by showing best practice. So showing a bit of how Investing for Charity does its research, right? So Sina will be doing that. And then after that, we've got a workshop on Google Apps by Benoit and the team. And that is, this is the first of kind of two, and we'll be doing more of this to make sure that we do this properly in the future, because this is an online organization that is aiming to scale. So scale not just across Australia, but potentially globally as well. So the way we do that is by figuring out how to work effectively online. We can work online, but working effectively online is really difficult. So Benoit and his team is like thinking very carefully about how to best do that, how to collaborate, how to share documents, how not to duplicate things, and all these little things that only come to mind when you actually start doing it. So we don't want it to become a tangled ball of cords and wires. We want it to be, organized and efficient. All right, and then after that, just informal like catch-ups, networking, and things. So just an organizational update for myself first. So the biggest thing on my mind, apart from myself and my wife were expecting, is that we met with a philanthropist from Melbourne, Daniel Mann and myself yesterday, and we're doing fundraising at the moment, right? So Investing for Charity, as you probably know, is an organization that doesn't need to fundraise. Well, it needs to fundraise once, okay? We got seed funding from Chris Cuff, ex-CEO of Colonial First State, CEO of Third Link Funds, Jeff Wilson, who's manager of Wilson Asset Management, Wilson Active, and a whole bunch of other things, like the Future Generations Investment Fund, which you should check out, and David Paradise as well, who runs Paradise Investment Managers, which has been so successful and gotten so big that he's now starting to think we're too big and we need to start just giving money back to people because it's too hard to actually make investments without everyone just creating a stack. And then since then, we've received a couple of like ad hoc like donations just from people who've gone, do you know what, this is something worth supporting. Like a director of mine, Christophe Denou, donated $10,000, which gets matched with Westpac's gift matching. And myself and Daniel Mann and Owen have all given roughly like $5,000, right? And we're alumni who are benefiting from all the experience and all the knowledge that you gain throughout this whole experience. And we've gotten great jobs. So so for us, it's worth supporting, and it's a very, very effective charity. Now we want to do our second round of funding is happening now. So we're looking for key donors, corporate donors, institutional donors like CEOs of fund managers and things like that. We're looking for high net worth individuals. We're looking for parents. We're looking for all sorts of people to donate now. Yesterday we had a pitch with Alex Weissless, who's a successful businessman and billionaire down in Melbourne, recently a billionaire in Melbourne, and he has pledged, like we read in the Financial Review, $50 million every year to charity, which is just incredible. And he's still a businessman. He's still working on his company and saving for things and stuff, just like anyone else, right? And but he's being very, very generous by doing that. he was also very generous with his time and meeting with us. And just to share with you how that meeting went, because I don't know if you've met many billionaires before, like it's the first time I've done that. And in fact, you hadn't met him before, and you introduced him. Yeah. So how did you set up the meeting in the first place?
It took me 6 months. At first, they wouldn't talk to me. So I just kept trying.
Yeah.
Kept calling them up and kept sending letters, emails, physical letters. Not too much because they were worried that we might swamp him. But eventually, he's like, oh, he really wants to meet me. So, and then we're going to fly down to Melbourne. And then, just like 2 days before, Alex said, oh, actually, I'm coming up to Sydney, so how about you cancel your flight? Except we had Jetstar flights that were not cancelled.
Yeah, because we didn't pay the $20 that we needed to make it cancelable.
So we actually
it's a little lesson. Yeah. Actually, I paid $20 on one of them, so I have a flight in the future that I may or may not use. But yeah, so that was a funny experience. Like we practiced. We met up with Mark Goddard, who's the head of syndicate at Westpac and Financial Markets, where I work. And he was generous enough to give us some of his time. And so Dan and I came and presented to him, and he said, "You guys, yeah, terrible." He said, first thing he says is, "You guys have a lot of work to do." And so he's done a bit of work with back the banker programs and like development programs within Westpac, right? So he was really good sounding board. And I met with him a couple of times subsequently, and we refined our pack, presented, practice, and then when we actually presented to him. The first thing he does is like hit us with a question we didn't expect, which was, okay, Dan, tell me your 2 best investments and your 2 worst investments. And
I was like, oh my God, spin. And I was like, think of stocks which I know that he owns.
Yeah.
Can't say that one last year's right? Between good and think of the one that failed. McPherson's, he owns 25% of Singapore Airlines, and he owns like 5% of McPherson.
Yeah.
So he knows his stocks very well. And for McPherson's, he was like, oh, I sold it at $2.20. So I was saying how we invested in the capital raising at $2.20. And he was like, I sold some at $2.20. Yes, I knew. So I feel very good.
Yeah. So that started really well. And then he turned to me, and then it was downhill from there. so you threw all the legal questions, tax questions. Yeah, who's on your board? What do you do with franking credits? Do you have deductible gift recipient status? What's your entity type? Do you have any profit or loss, or how do your expenses work?
Matt passed the test. He passed the test.
Yeah.
He understands his organization.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like little painful detail that over the years I've had to go through, and to actually make this whole thing work. And but that's great because that's a barrier to entry for anyone else who wants to kind of do something similar and like dilute the whole value proposition which we're giving. We are the only organization like this that exists in the world. That is cool. And for people like him, that's cool. Like that's something worth supporting. At the end of it, he didn't get his wallet out, but like at the end of it, like he said, all right, look, this is really good, guys. Thanks very much, and I'm going to take everything on board, and let's keep in touch. All right. So after that, we'll see what happens. So it's very exciting. I shared the story with the head of sales in Westpac Financial Markets, and he said, "Oh, tell me what happened." And then he goes, "All right, give me your pitch." Because he's a sales guy and he's like really hyperactive. And he goes, "Give me your pitch." And I went through the slides and I gave the pitch. I think it was better than when we did it with Alex. So at the end of it, he goes, all right, I want to donate a couple of grand, $2,000. There, done. All right, you do it. So I printed out the bank details and gave it to him. And he said, "I'm going to the bank. He just has to do that." And I said, "Don't worry about Westpac's matching gifts. I'll do all of that for you." And he goes, "I like it. That's really good. Good sales." Because he was training me like how to be a good salesperson is to do everything for the customer. So the only thing they have to do is say yes. It's that easy. Say yes, and all this will be yours. How good is it? So that's the latest thing from me. So we also have like a lot of work going on with the business side. Like next week, we've got our kind of annual kind of fun sort of Christmas party with laser tag, and you can all come along to that, and that'll be great. But the most valuable thing coming out of that day, apart from like just interacting on a social level and not talking about investments for a change, is we're going to workshop like how this whole thing's going to run next year. So we've got some of our people from UNSW here, and from Investment Charity Limited as well, and we want to pretty much work together and figure out how can we really make this work? Because, like in a nutshell, if we're going to really grow, we've got the digital presence where we've got social media presence, online presence like website and things like that, and the Twitter account, which is operated by me at the moment, which I want to change because I'm boring and all I do is flick through news articles. But we'll have a social media presence, an online presence, and digital workspace where we're actually collaborating together online. But the in-person part, which is really the thing that keeps everyone together, the in-person interaction, the networking, helping each other get jobs and find out what each other's doing in your degree, and all these other things like how you guys are going, do you have a girlfriend and stuff like that. Like that kind of thing is the goal that kind of makes the whole thing real. And the societies are there, that the societies deliver that, and also have that extension of impact, like more and more people getting involved and hearing about what we're doing, and that succession of people getting involved. So the actual activities are going to be on campus, and the work gets done online. So you get to collaborate with professionals and people from all over Australia online, but your in-person interaction is places like UNSW here. Okay, but that's the idea. But we're going to figure out how that's going to work next week. So without further ado, I'll pass over to our Chief Investment Officer, that's Shahan Gunasekharan, and to give an update on the investment side, how stocks have been going, and what's in store for the future. So Shahan.
Thank you. Hi guys, and welcome everyone. It's great to see lots of new faces around. So as Matt said, I'm the Chief Investment Officer of Investing for Charity. So I just want to take you through kind of what's been going on behind the scenes, because it's been a couple of months since we've all met up. Everyone's been going through exams and things like that. Thankfully, you've all hopefully seen the light at the end of the tunnel and can now enjoy the break a little bit. So the investment committee, it's for those who don't know, it's structured into 4 subcommittees, I guess. So there's the market analysis team, who's responsible for originating investment opportunities. There's the fundamental analysis team, who's responsible for basically taking those original investment opportunities to the next level, building a DCF model, researching the company in more detail, researching the industry in more detail, looking at risk factors, and ultimately coming up with a strategy and recommendation. Then there's the research analysis team, who is responsible for reviewing the work that the fundamental analysts do. So that's kind of an ongoing process. As the fundamental analysis team does a bit of research, they pass it on to the research analysis team to get their feedback, and it's a continuous process. Ultimately, at the end of that process, the RA team gives their tick of approval, saying, yep, we've gone through it all, we're happy with the assumptions, happy that there are no technical errors in the models, and we're happy for this to form what's called Tier 3, which is basically an investable stock. Doesn't mean that we will invest in it straight away, but it's within that pool of stocks that if the price moves in our favor, we can potentially invest in it. Sitting above all that is the portfolio analysis team, who basically takes this pool of Tier 3 stocks and says, based on these price movements and the recommendations and the outcomes from the DCF model, this is our portfolio recommendation. So that's basically kind of a high-level overview of how it all works. So I just want to give you a quick update on what's been going on within each of these teams. So the market analysis team has been very, very busy. That's headed by Matthew Wang. So in the past couple of months, Annie and George have put together a news analysis report, which for those who like us on Facebook or like our LinkedIn as well, you would see that it's released on a weekly basis, generally on Friday. And that's basically an overview of market movements over the past week. Keeps an eye on the stocks that we are invested in and stocks that we are watching, but also macro factors as well. There are also some pretty cool opinion pieces and things like that. So I very much encourage you all to like our Facebook page and keep an eye out for those news reports. On top of that, there's an economic analysis team, who at the moment provides a monthly overview of the RBA minutes. Ultimately, the view is that they're going to come up with macroeconomic oversights and views based on idea is that basically they'll come up with a model. So whilst they're in the process of building that model, at the moment they are reviewing the RBA minutes and producing an update on that on a monthly basis. So you can get that as well from our Facebook page. And on top of that, Matthew and myself have also been building a market screener. So one of the key issues that we've had with the market analysis team is you've got basically 2,000 stocks listed on the ASX. We've got all of us and we have broadly limited resources. So how do we go through those 2,000 stocks and decide which stocks we want to look into in a bit more detail? We can't go through every single one of those 2,000 stocks. So we need a method to kind of whittle down that universe a little bit. So what we've come up with is a quantitative screener at the moment. This is kind of ideally going to be the primary method that we source our investment opportunities from, with the economic analysis team and news analysis team also feeding in their inputs as well. So that's in the process of development. It's just about done. So broadly how that works is it takes 2,000 ASX listed stocks, has broadly exclusion criteria, which whittles it down to about 250 stocks, and then ranks those stocks based upon what we determine to be value metrics. And then the idea is that the market analysis team can then go through those stocks. They have broadly a prioritized list of stocks that they can then go through, and then hopefully they can feed that into the fundamental analysis team. And by that, we hopefully have a sustainable method of coming up with investment opportunities. So yeah, a lot's been going on the market analysis side of things. On top of that, fundamental analysis team. So Terry over there and Raymond have been researching Isentia. So they started this about 4 months ago. And basically, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the investment side of our organization. They really get down into understanding the company itself. It takes a lot of work. And they've been balancing that with assignments and assessments and things like that as well. But they've really put in the hard yards, and they've managed to complete their research on time, which is fantastic. So as they've been progressing along with their research, they're producing videos. We feel that videos are kind of the best way to provide an overview of their analysis. And all of those videos have been uploaded to our Dropbox, and I very much encourage you all to look at that. As you all know, we share all of our research. So there's a Dropbox link that contains a link to all of the videos and the underlying Excel models. So if anyone wants to go into the Excel models, look at the research that's been done and perhaps critique it, we very much encourage that. So it's all there for everyone to look at. On top of that, Alexi over there, who's our Director of Portfolio Analysis, has been in the process of building our portfolio model. So as I said earlier, that's the idea is that it takes the pool of stocks that have been approved and comes up with portfolio recommendations based on the distribution of each of those stocks. As you can imagine, it's a very hard thing to do. It's very much outside my level of expertise, which is why we have Alexi working on that. So that's been progressing really well. So on top of that, just broadly, what we're thinking about going forward. So we've kind of realized that obviously the fundamental analysis team is one of the hardest teams in the investment committee to be a part of because it involves so much work, and it involves kind of balancing that with assessments, uni assignments, and all of that. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for all of you guys who are part of the fundamental analysis team to be able to do that and balance that with your uni commitments and other commitments, interviews and things like that as well. So what we've come up with are 2 ideas at the moment. So one of those is a peer review process. So the idea is that we have the research analysis team who is in kind of constant communication with the fundamental analysis team, reviewing and providing feedback to the FAs. But the idea is that at the end of that fundamental analysis cycle, basically each of the models then gets passed on to another team to be reviewed. We hope this kind of accomplishes a couple of things. First one is mainly that it enhances the review process, and given our research analysis team does have limited resources, it kind of takes a bit of weight off them. But on top of that, it also gives the opportunity for each of the fundamental analysis teams to see how other people are doing things, which we feel is kind of really important, because you learn a lot just by looking at how someone else does something, critiquing that, reviewing that, and hopefully learning something as well. So we hope that that will kind of ease the process a little bit. On top of that, we're also planning to put together DCF templates. So the idea of building a model from scratch, for those who have never done it before, can obviously be quite intimidating. So the idea is that we want to make that process as easy as possible for you all. So over the next couple of months, myself and the rest of the investment committee are planning to put together a few DCF templates that will be handed to the fundamental analysts at the start of an investment cycle, that will kind of basically be the broad building blocks for the research going forward. And hopefully that will kind of ease the workload off a little bit for each of the fundamental analysis teams. But yeah, I guess I want to throw it to you guys as well. If you guys have any suggestions as to how best might be to kind of balance uni commitments and the work of being in the investment committee, because we all know it's a lot of work, and we obviously don't get paid, but the work that we all do is very much valued. So I just want to put it out there to all of you guys. If you guys have any suggestions or comments as to how we can best kind of help facilitate better processes going forward within the fundamental analysis team, or just more broadly. If anyone has any comments.
What do you think, Terry?
Yeah, I think every DCF template will be iron work, just because it's very build a complex model. It's very hard for someone new to the fundamental analysis team to understand the model. So I think for I4C to be sustainable in the future, I think someone needs to newcomer so that they probably a relatively easy understanding model for it to continue. So I like the idea of having a DCF template. It's my opinion.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea, the template. Really fantastic idea. The other benefit to it is also people who open up a model. I mean, these things can be very complex, and if they're all relatively standardized, it'll be a lot easier for the research analysis team as well as anyone who wants to read it. I mean, they already know where to find all the key variables and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So I think it's a good one.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess kind of flowing on from that as well. The idea is that ultimately we want to make it easy for members within the investment committee to transition between teams. So at the moment, person's position within a team is fairly static. So if you're an FA member, broadly you're an FA member. But we really want to kind of facilitate movement. So we really want to make it easy for an FA member to be able to move to the RA team and start reviewing models, getting a look at what everyone else does. And hopefully, as you say, Lee, by having kind of standardized models, that kind of takes away the initial groundwork that needs to be done to just understand how the model works. And they can really get into kind of understanding the assumptions behind that. So hopefully that will facilitate that. Yes?
I have just one question. I mean, is the peer review team charged with continuous peer review, or are they only peer reviewing at the end of the process?
So they only the idea is that they peer review at the end of the process, and then the research analysis team is responsible for monitoring on an ongoing basis. So that's their primary responsibility.
I just wonder if maybe you've got a less experienced team who's struggling with time commitments.
Yep.
Whether bringing peer review in earlier at a few attachment points might help them stay on track.
Sure.
It's just an idea.
Okay. Yeah. Something for us to take on board. Yeah, thanks. Well.
I still think there's an opportunity to look at what the method is for performing the fundamental analysis
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And improving that.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Because in the past, we kind of tailored it around building it from scratch. And it was start with an industry overview and then company analysis and then accounting and financial and, but that's something which we can, we can change to make it a lot easier to do. What do you say?
Well, if we go back and have a look at what has occurred over time, in 2011, we had teams that were set up around a specific industry, and then they would pick the company within that industry and effectively then produce their own method for how they would inevitably try and value that company. And then in 2011, not long after that, we were introducing our first learning development program. Part of that was this idea we're going to teach people a standard set of steps that they went through to perform this process. And we taught that then subsequently. And then we also asked our investment committee teams to apply it. And that's just what Matthew was describing then. It had 7 stages. It was a top-down approach. Started with an industry analysis, then went into a company and strategy analysis, accounting analysis, financial analysis, prospective analysis, then on the valuation, then it had a final stage of a strategy and recommendation that was just a qualitative assessment of the outcome. And what we've been talking about for maybe even a year now, or more than that, is this idea that the key problem that we think exists in that method, and I think it's been apparent in how people present, because you almost don't see where you're heading until you get quite far in. A lot of the stages are conducted in this almost a robotic fashion, and we're not really articulating how we are trying to forecast these things all eventually tying together. So the type of change we've been thinking about wanting to apply to a method that we help people learn so that this is easier is one where you have your model building from the very beginning, and it's in a very rough form. And every single time you perform one of these types of stages, which are all still going to be relevant, you end up having these versions of your model. And over time, when you have to do a review of your model and see whether or not it's being effective, whether or not your forecasts were accurate, you can go back through your versions and see perhaps where the inequities lie, and then you can more effectively adjust it. And subsequently, it's much easier then to look at how people are building the model and heading towards the final outcome if they've got these versions along the way. You have these snapshots.
So like rather than a picture on that screensaver that's kind of going around like a Mr. Squiggle or something, and it's kind of drawing little bits of, and you're not sure what the picture is. And then when you get to the very end, and then the whole thing's upside down, and then there you go, there's a picture, right? Instead of that, it's more like a picture that's being painted all at once, and it's blurry, and it slowly
it's better and better.
and it slowly gets better, and the quality improves, and you can see what it is, and it's just getting better and better, and eventually it's like Picasso, So actually not Picasso, we don't want to abstract ideas, but like, maybe it starts off like I don't know enough about art. All right, fine, drop it. But like it's a picture that's coming into focus, but you can see the whole thing at once, and it's an iterative process of like improving your research. But in the beginning, you've already got an idea of what you want, or like I think this is maybe worth investing in. And the more work you put on it, the more information you have about the company and little things that you discover. And then there are chances where when you're doing your research, you come across this little detail that goes, oh no, I'm not investing in this at all. Or it changes things quite a lot. But, majority of the time you've got an idea which is just getting a bit clearer and clearer. Yeah. All right, last one.
I don't know how familiar everyone here is with the people who made up research analysis, but MAPS, Shrimchenko, has really been the heart and soul of it. The problem, however, with having Max there and providing that role with how we've done things so far is that model that is what really the end game is about, producing an intrinsic value that we can then use. It comes very close to the end, and Max would be in a room like this and we'd see it presented up on the screen, and he'd say, well, what about that? That doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, the reason some of those things didn't make sense is perhaps because something very early on in the process was not done correctly, and subsequently it was being undermined the whole way through. So the idea is that what I described earlier, that might not be what we end up with, but it's got the essence of what we want to achieve, which is that we can have research analysis performing this task much more effectively along the way if we are gutting out how this is being grown as it goes along. Transparency, as Shahan and Matthew said earlier, about having our information available to everyone and people can understand how we are doing what we're doing. This is part of that. It's just pushing it up to a new level.
So the new system is about making the process more enjoyable, right?
Enjoyable, yes.
It's very important for us.
Yeah, that instant idea of like how.
Yeah, more enjoyable, more interactive.
Yeah.
This is kind of what we love, all getting together and being able to talk, which is great.
There's also the lead time that it takes to actually complete a fundamental analysis. That's been a real pain for most people, and I think that it's a good quality to have to humbly admit that most of the time it fails because teams just can't stay consistent the length of time that is required in the midst of all the other obligations and desires that we'd like to have in our lives and other things we want to do. So we're also looking to do this in a way so that if those events arise, it doesn't fall on its face. There's a succession capacity in there so that it can hand on much easier. That's number one. Number two, hopefully just a new approach to the methodology makes it quicker. And it allows for a more effective team interaction to perform this task. We've gone through some different variations where we did have teams and we had individuals just doing them on our own, and we went back to teams, and we always had the desire of being able to break it up so that teams could work more effectively on it, but perhaps yet we have not got the proper mold for teams to be able to do that. And then finally, I think there's just a personal feeling with younger people who are in their early undergraduate stages and they get faced with this task which feels gargantuan. How am I going to do this? Considering how long apparently it's going to take, and we hear, we say every single time we bring it up, yes, we appreciate it's very complex, it's very difficult. We want to be able to instill some courage or confidence that this is actually possible. I don't know if it's appropriate yet to talk about the action sort of day concept that we're starting.
All right, we'll mention that, and then to wrap up, an idea that we're thinking of, and next week we're going to be discussing a little bit how we want it to work, is which we've been speaking a little bit with we've been speaking a little bit with Standard & Poor's about, who are keen to sort of lend some data licenses with us and become a data partner for us, so we can actually get data like that in all our templates. The idea is like a boot camp, like a model boot camp, which comes at the beginning. It's a one-day intense, kind of fun, facilitated event, which happens at the beginning of each investment cycle. And you get everyone in a room working in teams of like 4, and you get a lot of buzz and marketing stuff around the actual event to get people excited about and stuff. And what you do is in the beginning of the day, you've got your team, stocks are up on the wall. So it's like an impromptu debate to an extent. Like you don't know what you're going to get until you go there, and then you see the stocks, the list of stocks. You have to now have like 20 minutes to decide which one you're going to research, and by the end of the day, you're going to have a recommendation on that stock, where you're going to have like a full model developed and an idea of how that of what you want to do with that stock. So, and then the best ones, win prizes and get awarded, and we can interact with other universities and things like that. So there's lots of cool things that we can do all around it. key like deliverable of it is A, you learn from scratch how to create this first stage of analysis, and B, the fund actually gets the first stage of analysis model from every single team that's in attendance at every single union that we've got a presence in. Eventually, UNSW to begin with. So yeah, that's roughly what we're thinking of, and that's like a kind of fun and fun event which can encapsulate like what it means to kind of develop something for IFLC. But yeah, let's move on and keep the thoughts going. Like if you've got more thoughts, you can always contact Shahan and Carl and myself and etc. We can and keep improving on it.
Yeah, exactly. And next week as well will be a great opportunity for us to kind of really develop these ideas a lot more and hear what everyone else has to say and hopefully come up with new ideas as well. So that's pretty much the end of the investment committee update. So as I said, feel free to email myself, Carl, Matt, or Ken. If you guys have any ideas or suggestions or questions, we're always open. So thank you.
Dan, would you like to introduce or just want to?
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
Mike's, he has been an equity analyst.
I'll don't read off the screen.
So he worked there for 6 years, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
Before that, he was at Canning Capital, and before that, he was at Actuary.